Hello. Um, Another piece of my story I wanted to offer around, um, I guess, preparing for surgery. So for me, the BSO surgery was my very first anything, really. Um, like my very first surgery for sure, my very first general anesthetic. And generally, I have had nothing done in my life, so I don't really know in many ways how the medical system works. And um, I'm in Canada, so there's obviously a few differences than other places in the world, but I didn't know what to expect. And I didn't know order of things. I didn't know what I was supposed to do versus what my GP was supposed to do versus what anyone else was supposed to do. And one of the things that um, I would say comes naturally, but also is a response to anxiety, is research and organizing things and orchestrating things and getting things in place for me. So as soon as I found out that I was a carrier of the BRCA2 gene, and I knew I wanted to do something about that, I started doing research and I started organizing. I had a notes in my iPad of just organizing questions, um, recording what I'd found out, recording all the information I could. And something that was really apparent to me in that very beginning stage when I found out I was a carrier of BRCA2 was that I was ready. Like I knew what I needed to do. For me, there wasn't a big deliberation over what action or what course of action I would take. It was, I knew I was going to have the prophylactic surgeries and I knew I wanted them now, as soon as I could. And so that kind of helped me in the direction that allowed me to just start taking action. And some of the things I found out in that process were that, for example, my GP gets results in a different time scale than I do. So I got the results that I was a carrier of BRCA2, and I basically immediately made an appointment with my GP. And I had been told by the genetic counselor that the GP would also be sent them the same day that I received them. That was my understanding. But that isn't really what happened, because I went in about 2.5 or 3 weeks later was when I could get an appointment with my GP. And she didn't have the information. So she didn't know what I was talking about until I arrived. And she was surprised. And then it was apparent that we needed to kind of figure out what had occurred. And I had spoken with her resident the week I received information, or the week after I received information, and her resident had actually started the process of already putting in referrals for me. And they didn't even have the genetic counseling information, so the report. But what I had done is I had gone and identified the different specialists that I wanted to be referred to and felt comfortable being referred to. And for me, making sure that I went to a specialist or was referred to a specialist specifically for the mastectomy and reconstruction, I wanted to be referred to a specialist that did this every day, all day. And for that particular surgery, I also wanted a woman. And that was mostly because I think women have the capacity to understand differently what another woman might be experiencing when considering removing their breasts. And certainly in our culture, and probably in other ones as well, like breasts are a big thing. They're a big thing in terms of mothering. They're a big thing in terms of femininity and sexuality. They're a big thing in terms of identity and desirability and sensuality. And there's just so much that goes on with that. And I felt that it was really important to me to have a woman doing my reconstruction. And so I came up with a list of the doctors that I wanted to go see. And one of the ways I did that is referral. So I knew someone who had seen the plastic surgeon that I ended up choosing, and I'm waiting for right now for surgery. And she had a breast reduction surgery from this plastic surgeon and just loved her. And so that was kind of part of the reason that I went to that surgeon. I also asked to be referred to a few other breast centers in my province, and then the BSO surgery. So I haven't had the mastectomy surgery yet, and the reconstruction, but the BSO surgery, I was very comfortable seeing my regional specialists. So I was referred to the regional specialists here and got into their practice. And that, because it was a regional practice, the wait lists were a little bit shorter. And so I had the BSO surgery first. But I didn't realize that the timing, I didn't realize that people like my GP wouldn't know the information or wouldn't have access to the information within a certain period. I didn't know how to be referred. I didn't know how to, like what the process was. And I actually think that was a bit of a good thing, just because I just started making it happen. But I also think that had I not been as on top of it as I was, I don't know how it would have happened, or whether it would have happened in the period that it is happening right now. And I think that's so important. And there were so many things that were confusing to me, and that I didn't receive the information, or I wasn't able to intake the information the way it was presented. And I would say that my background, just in terms of my career and the type of work that I do, lends me to be good at navigating government systems and good at advocating and asking questions. And I'm willing to keep asking until I get an answer that feels right to me. And I thought through some of this process, if I didn't have that capacity or that awareness or that knowledge, it would have been far less I guess it would have been far less efficient, and it would have been much more difficult to navigate had I not had the background that I have. So I would just encourage people to ask questions and in some ways demand answers. Like, if you're not feeling comfortable with something, then it really is important to keep asking and to keep clarifying and to keep seeking an answer that feels right. And in all of that, one of the things I noticed is just to follow up, and not to be, I wasn't pushy, but I was assertive. And I wanted to, like, okay, so when am I going to have an appointment? And because I kept calling, I actually ended up getting appointments faster than just waiting. And I wasn't demanding, but I just kept checking in. And I think that really supported me in getting to where I am as quickly as I did, despite it still being a lengthy process. But it was important to me to take action and to follow up and to set kind of goals, like give a reasonable period of time based on the timelines that they gave me. Like if they said, you should hear within 8 weeks. And I didn't hear, so I called. And then as soon as I called for example, the gynecology office right at the 8-week mark, I hadn't received anything. And when I called, they immediately gave me an appointment the next week. So that occurred. It's the same thing with the plastic surgeon. When I reached the kind of time that they said that the previous surgeon, the general surgeon, had said I should expect to hear by, and I hadn't heard, I called and asked. And again, they scheduled me an appointment like within 2 weeks. So it's just worth asking. And I feel really good that I did ask. And that kind of satisfied my desire to control some things, even though there is no control. There's feeling that I have influence and that I have agency in moving things along as best as I can have agency in it. And so things that I can control, I have sought opportunity to influence. So that's so that's a little bit about like kind of the process. And I feel now still, as much as I feel anxious about waiting for a date for my mastectomy and reconstructive surgery, and I haven't heard anything in nearly 4 months. I know there are some dates, right? I know that the date anchor points that they gave me, and I know I now have an MRI scheduled for about a month from now, and like a contrast breast MRI scheduled. And so those are kind of anchor points. And once those are kind of complete, then I will take the next step to see what I can learn about getting a date scheduled. So I think I'll leave it there with that piece, and I may add some more, but there's the places that you can control and the places that you can have influence and the places that you can encourage them to meet your needs, even if you can't. I mean, obviously you can't force it. You can't, demand, but you can ask. And it doesn't hurt to ask unless there is a specific kind of request that you don't ask. And I ran into that also once where I was like, okay, I'm not going to ask because they've said, don't ask before this date. So fine. So yeah, another little piece of my story. Thank you.